Hey there nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with another episode of Way of the Underhive. This series is dedicated to helping brand new players to Necromunda build their starting rosters and learn more about the game mechanics of their favorite gangs. And on this episode we will be discussing a Noble House alliance with House Tie. We will discuss their strengths, weaknesses, their fighters, playstyle, as well as provide critical information that you can use in your campaign. So that being said, let's go ahead and do a deep dive on the Noble House alliance with the House of Tie. Alright, so first of all, let's talk about the positive impact on your campaign when you make a Noble House alliance with House Tie. First of all, you benefit from a special rule called a Band Apart, and what that does, it gives you all the benefits and none of the negatives of taking on extra fighters. Not to mention, you also have pretty good bodyguards within the fighter entourages that will help keep the leader of your Noble House alliance from harm, which makes them pretty good for getting things done. At the same way, as I always mentioned before, this is a good way to balance out numbers in a scenario. They do not take up any crew slots, so bringing in experienced fighters with better equipment and better abilities without impacting your crew sizes is always a good thing. And the best part about it, of course, is that regardless of your law-abiding or outlaw status, it does not matter. Noble houses work with anybody, law-abiding gangs, outlaw gangs, everything in between, because they really just see the gangs as being tools to achieve their own agendas, but always to keep that in mind. Now, the negative impact on gameplay with making an alliance with House Tie is that your alliance can easily be broken with your drawbacks. Your drawbacks could have some serious implication for your gangs, with either deletion of fighters or taking away of generation of income or some other horrific method. So because of that, when you take a look at the negative as well as positive impacts that this alliance will have on your gang, decide where the risk and the reward lie and which one actually means more to you, and then of course act accordingly. However, I will warn you though, expect Game of Level Thrones level kind of pettiness when it comes to the backstabbing abilities of these noble houses. Noble houses are backstabbing, plotting, and mercurial allies at best, so always remember that and proceed with caution. So that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the tactical and strategic assets that House Tie brings to your gang. So tactical assets are game mechanics that affect individuals or combat on the battlefield. So this is actually going to impact your individual games of Necromunda on the tabletop whenever you play your games. On the other hand, however, strategic assets are game mechanics that impact a gang during the course of a campaign. So these are things that are going to really affect you in the pre-battle sequence as well as the post-battle sequence. Either they can get you on different hanger-ons or give you additional territories or whatever the case may be. Now when it comes to House Tie is a very strong tactical asset due to the Onmyodo Coven and the impact that its psychics have on your guys' gang. And psychic powers are starting to become a very serious game mechanic now in these later editions of Necromunda. Having this Onmyodo Coven could really help you out and really protect you from the psychics that your enemies might have. However, when it comes to their strategic choice though, House Tie is a very poor strategic asset because it doesn't really offer any strategic advantages over the long-term haul of your campaign. You do get a benefit of having some psychic abilities given to one of your fighters, so I guess you could kind of perceive that as a strategic ability, but I look at that more as like a tactical ability above anything else. So in my opinion, House Tie is purely a tactical choice. So one of the benefits you have with an alliance with House Tie is that you automatically get a strong alliance with House Tie if you happen to be a Delaque gang. House Tie was actually the noble house that was brought up in the very last book of the gang books for the Book of Shadows for the House Delaque characters, so because of that, Delaque automatically comes with this strong alliance. At the same time, you also what's called Psychic Training, and what you do is you choose one fighter with the Psychoteric Mastery, Sanctioned Psyker, or Non Sanctioned Psyker special rules. And this fighter knows one more psychic power than normal, and this power is lost, however, if your alliance is broken. So for example, if you're one of those kind of gangs, or for example, if you're Delaque, who automatically come with these abilities to purchase these psychic abilities for your gang, this could be really helpful for you. Or if you do have a non-sanctioned psyker or psyker in your gang, you could also earn additional psychic powers with that as well. So it could really help you out on a tactical level. You could argue this could also be considered a strategic asset as well, but because this has such a low impact on the overall development of your gang over time, I would make it more a tactical choice. At the same time, you also get the added benefit of the Onmyodo Coven, but we'll talk about those guys here in a little bit. Now, there are also some serious drawbacks when making an alliance with House Tie. The first one is called Disturbing Visions, which means that a randomly chosen deployed fighter, you must basically roll this for this character. This character automatically starts off with a flesh wound. And if you decide not to do that, you could of course test the alliance. So it does kind of handicap your forces just a little bit, because when your guys could start off with a flesh wound right off the bat, so you do have to take that in mind. But considering like other drawbacks, like for example from the Syndicate, it's actually not all that bad. At the same time, you also have the drawback called the Cost of Lies, and it says during the determined scenario step, if a double is ruled, you ignore it. Instead, your opponent may select the scenario, and of course, if you decide to ignore this or try to break it, you basically test the alliance as well. Now, Cost of Lies could be kind of a problem, and the reason why is because if your opponent wants to choose a scenario that is actually towards their advantage and a disadvantage to you, it could have some potential drawbacks on a tactical as well as strategic level as well. But like I said, when you compare these drawbacks to the drawbacks you would get from making a criminal alliance with the Syndicate, these are very, very mild in compared to that. Alright, so let's go and talk about the entourage that the House Tie provides you, which is the Onmyodo Coven. So let's go ahead and talk about these guys real quick. First of all, they have a really interesting game mechanic on this one. This actually comes with two fighters. You have what's called an Onmyodo Telepath and an Onmyodo Null. And what you have is this game mechanic called Control Collar. And basically what it means is that both of these Psykers, because they're both Psykers, have collars on, and you basically have to select only one fighter from this coven could use their psychic abilities at any one time, and you basically have to choose between each turn. So whenever you decide to activate these fighters, you got to figure out whose control collar is on. If the Onmyodo Telepath control collar is on, the Onmyodo Telepath cannot use any of their psychic abilities, whereas the Null can. On the flip side, if the Onmyodo Null's control collar is on, then the Onmyodo Null can't use their abilities while the Onmyodo Telepath can. So you see how it works? So it basically goes back and forth. So there's no single turn where you can actually use the abilities of both fighters, which is kind of sad. But at the same time, though, when you read about the lore of the House Tie, how they do things, it also oddly enough makes kind of sense, I guess. Narratively speaking, it's a very powerful choice. So now that we got the control collar out of the way, because that's going to be a very big impact on how you go about playing this gang, let's go and talk about the individual fighters. So first of all, we have the Onmyodo Telepath. Now this fighter's got a 5-inch movement, 5 weapon skill, 5 ballista skill. They have 3 strength and toughness, 1 for wound, 4+ for initiative, 1 attack. They have 8+ for leadership, 7+ for cool, 5+ for willpower, as well as 7+ for intelligence. Now, the Telepath is a sanctioned psyker, which means they get access to 2 telepathy powers of your choice, which is really nice because you could actually cherry pick what powers you want depending on what kind of scenario you might be going into or what kind of gang you're fighting against. So because that's a really powerful ability for you to use that. At the same time, the Onmyodo Telepath is not a weakling at all when it comes to their equipment. They actually have a shock stave as well as a refractor field, and they also have the overseer ability. However, even though they do have that overseer skill, though, they can only use it on the Onmyodo Null, which is the second fighter that's looking in this entourage. So you could, of course, forgo using any of your psychic abilities and just spam the overseer ability for the Null to do multiple activations and combats and stuff. But it's purely up to you. Like I said, House Tie is an excellent tactical asset, and so using that ability can only help out your gang for the most part. So let's go ahead and talk about the Onmyodo Null next. So once again, the Onmyodo Null is also subject to the control collar power ability, the game mechanic for both the Null as well as the Telepath. Now for the Null's statistics, we have a 5-inch movement, 4+ weapon skill, as well as 4+ ballista skill. They have 3 strength, 3 toughness, 1 wound. They also have a 4+ initiative, also 1+ attack. They have 8+ for leadership, 5+ for cool, 7+ for willpower, as well as 7+ for intelligence. Now, when it comes to the Onmyodo Null, they have a very special ability that they can do where basically they are null, so they can disrupt Wyrd Powers. And all Psykers, whether they be friend or foe, within 6 inches can't manifest any powers whatsoever. Also, all fighters, both friends and foes, must suffer -2 to all their cool tests. And so represents the fact that the Onmyodo Null kind of creates this disturbing psychic ability, it was field around itself, that basically counts out psychic abilities and also kind of drives people insane, which I actually think is kind of like a little cool game mechanic there. Now, there is some problems with this, of course. Like I said before, it also affects your friends. So if you have any Psykers within 6 inches that belong to your gang, they will not be able to manifest those powers. At the same time, any fighters who are near this guy also suffers -2 to their cool test. So do keep that in mind. In fact, you want to give the Onmyodo Null a very wide berth for your gang and just kind of send this fighter out on their own for the most part. And of course, this only happens if the control collar is not activated on the Null. If you don't like this ability, you can just shut it down and just use the Onmyodo Null for its combat abilities. Because when it comes to its weapons, it's actually got a very powerful set of weaponry. It's armed with a bolt gun as well as a power sword. They also have mesh armor as well as a respirator, and they also have the true grit skills. So this guy is also kitted out for combat as well, which is kind of nice with some powerful weapon choices. So if you want to, you could actually just keep the Onmyodo Null's Collar totally activated if you're fighting against opponents who don't have any Psykers. That way you don't have to worry about disrupting your cool test for your fighters, and just use this guy as a pure combat or combat oriented fire, which is perfectly fine. That way you can have the Onmyodo Telepath use your powers the entire time. Or you could also reverse that control collar in case you're fighting against an opponent who does have a lot of Psykers, and you can use this guy to kind of shut that down right off the bat. So like I said before, the Onmyodo Coven has some really strong tactical choices on it and really good tactical applications, and it's kind of best how to use it for whatever situation you're running into. So in conclusion, an alliance with House Tai is an excellent tactical choice, especially if you're taking on Psykers or if you want Psykers of your own inside of your gang. The Onmyodo Coven is good to give your gang some extra psychic punch, which is really nice, but at the same time it can really affect your enemy Psykers and destroy them that way as well. And when you compare the fact that Psykers are becoming more of a serious game mechanic in these campaigns in Necromunda, you really can't go wrong with making an alliance with House Tai. And like I said before, if you need psychic abilities or psychic protection against Psykers, then House Tai is the way to go, because the other option would be to make an alliance with the Psy Syndicate, and if you guys saw our video on that, that is a horrible alliance. You should never make it unless you absolutely have to. But yeah, House Tai though, fully endorsed it. It looks like you do a lot of awesome things with these guys as well. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much going to do it for this one. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's going to do it for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.